The coastal flats of Xeria stretched endlessly under a crimson sky, the tide whispering against the alien sands. Dr. Lena Hartwell, a field medic with years of experience healing everything from soldiers to extraterrestrial fauna, treaded carefully, her boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. Her usual rounds brought her to these isolated shores where she collected rare herbs for her medical supplies. Today, however, was different. A shadow loomed in the distance, an unnatural mass tangled in the receding tide. Curious, Lena approached, her sharp eyes scanning the anomaly. What she saw made her breath hitch. A Zorthian dragon, a creature whispered of in myths, sprawled, half submerged in the mud. Its immense body was marred by jagged wounds, its once majestic scales dulled and covered with parasitic barnacles that glowed faintly in the dim light. The dragon's breaths were shallow, each exhale releasing a plume of steam that dissipated quickly in the cool air. Its golden eyes, dim with exhaustion, flickered toward Lena as she approached. A guttural growl rumbled through the air, but the creature lacked the strength to lift its head. Lena's heart wrenched. This wasn't a predator. It was a victim, abandoned and suffering. She took a cautious step closer, her voice soft but firm. "Easy now," she said, pulling her medical scanner from her satchel. "I'm not here to hurt you. Let me help." The dragon's gaze remained fixed on her, weary but unthreatening. Lena knelt in the wet sand, her scanner whirring as she assessed its injuries. The readings were grim. Multiple fractures, deep lacerations, and millions of parasitic barnacles feeding on its life force. The creature was dying, but not without a fight. "You've been through hell," Lena murmured, her hands already moving to apply a salve to one of the smaller wounds. "But you're not going to die here. Not if I can help it." The dragon let out a low, rumbling exhale, its eyes closing as if surrendering to her care. The first challenge was the barnacles. Each one clung tightly to the dragon's scales, their glowing tendrils pulsing as they sapped its strength. Lena worked tirelessly, prying the parasitic growths off one by one, her hands steady, despite the immense effort it took. "You've got quite the infestation here," she muttered, her tone light as if speaking to a regular patient. "Whoever left you like this, they didn't deserve you." The dragon stirred faintly at her words, a low rumble vibrating through the ground. Lena paused, her gaze meeting its golden eyes. "You can understand me, can't you?" she asked softly. The dragon blinked slowly, its eyes filled with a mix of pain and something else, gratitude, hope. Lena couldn't be sure, but it strengthened her resolve. She set up a makeshift camp by the tidal flats, returning every day with fresh water, food, and medical supplies. The parasitic barnacles resisted her efforts, their glowing tendrils trying to latch onto her gloves, but she pressed on. Each removal revealed a glimpse of the dragon's true form, scales that shimmered faintly, hinting at the majesty it once possessed. Lena's scanner beeped as she finished treating a particularly deep wound. The dragon's vitals were stabilizing, albeit slowly. She leaned back, wiping sweat from her brow. "You're tough, I'll give you that," she said, her voice tinged with admiration, "but you're not out of the woods yet." The dragon let out a deep, rumbling noise that sounded almost like agreement. Lena chuckled, shaking her head. "Don't get too cocky. We've still got a lot of work to do." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Lena sat beside the resting dragon. She placed a hand gently on its flank, her voice soft. "I don't know where you came from or who left you like this, but I promise you this, you're not alone anymore." The dragon's breathing steadied, its golden eyes closing as it succumbed to the first peaceful sleep it had known in years. The days turned into a week as Dr. Lena Hartwell continued her work on the injured Zorthian dragon, which she now called Solace, after the faint golden glow of its eyes that reminded her of sunlight breaking through a storm. Each barnacle she removed revealed more of the dragon's iridescent scales, and every wound she treated brought it closer to recovery. Solace watched Lena closely as she worked, its golden eyes following her every move. At first its gaze had been wary, a creature poised for betrayal. But as the days passed, that wariness softened into curiosity and then something deeper. Trust one. One morning, as Lena approached the creature with fresh supplies, Solace shifted slightly, making it easier for her to access a deep wound on its flank. Lena paused, a small smile playing at her lips. "Well, look at that," she said softly. "You're letting me in." Solace rumbled low in its chest, a sound that no longer carried the threat it once did. Lena chuckled. "I'll take that as a thank you." She worked methodically, removing another cluster of barnacles that had embedded themselves near the base of Solace's tail. Each removal revealed shimmering scales beneath, their brilliance dulled but still undeniably beautiful. Lena couldn't help but marvel at the creature's resilience. "You've been through so much," she murmured, her hands steady despite the grueling task. "And yet here you are, still fighting." Solace's golden eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Lena felt an unspoken understanding pass between them. The dragon exhaled deeply, the sound carrying a sense of release, as if, for the first time in years, it believed it might survive. The quiet progress of Lena's work was shattered on the 9th day. The sky above the tidal flats buzzed with the hum of alien engines. Galactic Empire reconnaissance drones, sleek and silver, descended from the atmosphere, their scanning beams slicing through the misty air. Lena froze, her pulse quickening as she spotted the drones. "No," she whispered, her mind racing. She turned to Solace, who growled low, its body tensing despite its injuries. "They found you." The drones hovered above the flats, their beams locking onto Solace's massive form. Lena scrambled for her comm. The device broadcasted a warning to the nearby settlement. "This is Dr. Lena Hartwell. Empire drones are sweeping the area. They're targeting an injured creature. I need assistance." Her message was met with static. The settlement was too far, and the drones would report back for help before anyone could arrive. Lena gritted her teeth, grabbing her plasma pistol from her medical kit. She wasn't a fighter, but she wouldn't let them take Solace. As the drones descended, their scanners intensified, and a mechanical voice echoed across the flats. "Target identified. Zarthan Dragon. Imperial property. Prepare for extraction." Solace let out a deafening roar, the sound reverberating across the flats. Despite its weakened state, the dragon's defiance was palpable. Lena stood her ground, firing at the nearest drone. The plasma bolt struck true, sending the machine spiraling into the sand. The remaining drones adjusted their focus, their beams. Locking onto Lena, she fired again, narrowly missing one as it darted to the side. "Damn it," she muttered, her hands shaking. Solace, sensing her distress, shifted its massive body and unleashed a weak but fiery breath. The flame struck another drone, reducing it to molten debris. But more drones appeared on the horizon, their sleek forms glinting in the sunlight. Lena's chest tightened as she realized they couldn't hold them off forever. "We need to move," she said, turning to Solace. "Can you stand?" The dragon growled, its injured limbs trembling as it tried to rise. Lena placed a hand on its flank, her voice steady despite her fear. "Come on, Solace. I've seen what you're capable of. Don't let them win." With a pained roar, Solace pushed itself onto its feet, its massive form towering over Lena. The dragon's golden eyes burned with determination as it spread its partially healed wings. Lena climbed onto its back, holding tightly to the base of its neck. "Let's get out of here," she said. Solace leapt into the air, its wings beating powerfully despite the splints Lena had fashioned. The dragon soared above the flats, its roar echoing as the drones pursued them. Lena fired at the nearest one, her shots precise despite the turbulence. As they rose higher, Solace unleashed another fiery breath, engulfing the remaining drones in a cascade of flames. The machines fell like meteors, their wreckage crashing into the flats below. Breathing heavily, Lena glanced back at the destruction. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with awe. Solace grumbled, its golden eyes glinting with triumph. But the victory was bittersweet. The Empire would know of their survival now, and they would return, stronger and more determined. Lena tightened her grip on Solace's scales, her resolve hardening. "There, Not going to stop, she murmured, but neither are we. For the first time since finding the injured dragon, Lena realized that saving Solace was only the beginning. Together, they had become a force the galaxy couldn't ignore. And they were just getting started. The victory over the Empire's reconnaissance. Drones bought Lena Hartwell and Solace a momentary reprieve, but the consequences were immediate. News of the Zarthan dragon's survival and its fiery retaliation spread quickly across the Empire's communication channels. What was once a forgotten relic of the past was now a resurrected threat. Lena guided Solace to a secluded cave system in the high cliffs overlooking the ocean. The journey was grueling. Despite its determination, Solace's injuries had worsened from the exertion of flight. The dragon's wings trembled with every beat, and its breaths grew labored as they neared the cliffside. Lena's heart ached as she witnessed the toll their escape had taken. "Hold on, Solace," she murmured, her hands gripping its scales tightly. Just a little further. Solace landed with a heavy thud, its massive form collapsing onto the rocky ground. Lena slid off its back, immediately assessing its condition. The wing splints she had crafted were bent, and several of its scales had been scorched during the battle. "You're stubborn. I'll give you that," Lena said softly, kneeling beside Solace's head. The dragon rumbled weakly, its golden eyes flickering. "Open to meet hers, but you need rest. Let me take care of you." Over the next several hours, Lena worked tirelessly to stabilize Solace. She reinforced its splints, applied salves to its burns, and carefully stitched a jagged tear in its wing membrane. Despite the gravity of the situation, she spoke to Solace. As she worked, her voice a soothing presence. "They'll come back for you," she said quietly, her hands steady as she sutured. "You know that, don't you? They won't let this go." Solace growled softly, a sound of acknowledgement. Its golden eyes glinted with defiance, a silent promise that it wouldn't go down without a fight. As Lena finished her work, she leaned back against the cave wall, exhaustion washing over her. "I don't know what's worse," she muttered. "The Empire or their obsession with turning everything into a weapon." Solace let out a low rumble, its gaze fixed on Lena. Then, for the first time, the dragon's voice filled her mind. Not a growl or a roar, but a clear telepathic resonance. "They destroyed my kind." Lena froze, her eyes widening. "You can talk?" Solace's voice, though weak, carried an ancient weight. "I am the last of the Zarian war dragons. We were forged for battle, enslaved by the Empire. When we broke free, they hunted us. I escaped. Barely." Lena's chest tightened. The weight of Solace's story sank in, and her anger toward the Empire burned brighter. "They abandoned you because they thought you were broken," she said. "But you're not. You're more than they ever deserved." Solace rumbled softly, its eyes glinting with something that might have been gratitude. "You saved me." "And I'm not done yet," Lena replied firmly. "But we can't do this alone." Lena knew that the Empire's forces would soon return, and this time, they wouldn't send mere reconnaissance drones. If she and Solace were to stand a chance, they needed help. But Zaria was a remote planet, its settlements sparsely populated, and its inhabitants wary of outsiders. Convincing anyone to join their fight would be an uphill battle, leaving Solace to rest in. Leaving the cave, Lena made her way to the nearby settlement of Morrow's Reach, a small outpost built along the coastline. The streets were quiet, the air heavy with the scent of salt and damp wood. She headed straight for the town's central hall, where the local leaders convened. The hall was modest, its walls lined with holographic displays of Zaria's wildlife and landscapes. A group of settlers turned to her as she entered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. "Dr. Hartwell," said Wren Trevors, the settlement's elder and an experienced navigator. "We heard about the drones. What's going on out there?" Lena didn't mince words. "The Empire's hunting an injured creature. I've been treating a Zarthan dragon." The room erupted into murmurs, some in awe, others in alarm. Wren raised a hand, silencing the chatter. "A dragon? Are you sure?" Lena nodded. I've been caring for it for weeks. The Empire abandoned it to die, but now they've realized it's alive. If we don't act, they'll bring their forces here, and they won't care who gets caught in the crossfire. One of the settlers, a young engineer named Mira Kell, spoke up. Why not let them take the dragon? If we stay out of their way, they might leave us alone. Lena's jaw tightened. Do you really believe that? The Empire doesn't stop at one dragon. They'll use it, weaponize it, and then come back for more. Standing by won't save us. It'll just delay the inevitable. Ren leaned forward, his weathered face thoughtful. And what do you propose, Doctor? Lena took a deep breath, her voice steady. We stand together. I've seen what Solace can do, even in its weakened state. With your help, we can prepare. Fortify the settlement, build defenses. If we show the Empire we're not afraid to fight, they might think twice before coming back. The room fell silent, the settlers exchanging uncertain glances. Finally, Ren stood. If what you're saying is true, we don't have much choice, we'll help. But this dragon of yours had better be as powerful as you say. Lena nodded, relief washing over her. You won't regret it. Returning to the cave, Lena found Solace, awake, its wounds already showing signs of healing. We've got allies, she said, setting down her gear. The settlement's on board. They're scared, but they're willing to fight. Solace growled softly, its golden eyes glowing brighter. Together we stand. Lena placed a hand on the dragon's flank, her resolve hardening. Together, she echoed. As the sun set over Zaria, casting the cliffs in hues of orange and gold, Lena and Solace prepared for the battle they knew was coming. The Empire would return, but this time they wouldn't face a helpless dragon or a lone medic. They would face a united force, one that refused to bow to their tyranny. The tranquil coastline of Zaria was anything but calm as preparations for the Empire's inevitable return began in earnest. Dr. Lena Hartwell worked tirelessly alongside the settlers of Merrow's Reach, organizing defenses and ensuring the settlement was ready for the battle to come. Meanwhile, Solace, the majestic and fearsome Zarthan dragon, grew stronger with each passing day, its golden eyes gleaming with newfound determination. Lena had never imagined herself as a strategist or leader, but necessity had forced her into both roles. She stood on the cliffs overlooking the settlement, surveying their progress. Defensive turrets had been hastily constructed, barriers erected, and energy shields activated around key areas. The settlers, though not soldiers, carried plasma rifles and improvised explosives, their resolve hardened by Lena's impassioned plea. Behind her, Solace perched on a rocky ledge, its massive wings flexing experimentally. The splints Lena had crafted were gone, replaced by fully healed membranes that shimmered in the sunlight. The dragon growled softly, a low rumble that resonated through the cliffs. You're ready, aren't you? Lena said, turning to face the dragon. Solace lowered its head, its golden eyes meeting hers. Ready to fight, it rumbled telepathically. The moment was interrupted by the sharp hum of engines. Lena's gaze snapped to the horizon, where a fleet of Imperial ships pierced the sky like blades. The largest, a Dreadwing-class destroyer, loomed. At the center, its cannons glowing ominously. Smaller assault ships flanked it, their sleek forms bristling with weapons. They're here, Lena said grimly, her heart pounding. The settlers scrambled into position as the Imperial fleet descended. The destroyer fired a warning shot, its plasma cannons scorching the ocean and sending a tidal wave crashing against the cliffs. Ren Trevors, the elder of Merrow's Reach, barked orders over the comms. Hold your ground. Wait for their ground troops to engage before firing. From her vantage point, Lena could see the Empire's troops deploying from the assault ships. Squadrons of shock troopers marched in perfect formation, their black armor glinting under the sun. Hover tanks rumbled across the sand, their cannons swiveling toward the settlement. Lena turned to Solace. This is it. They're here for you. But they'll destroy everything if we don't stop them. Solace growled, spreading its wings with a powerful flap that sent dust swirling around them. They will regret it. The dragon leaped into the air, its massive form casting a shadow over the cliffs. The settlers cheered as Solace roared. the sound reverberating across the battlefield. The Empire's forces hesitated, their formation faltering at the sight of the legendary creature they had once thought destroyed. But the Empire wasn't finished. The destroyer, still hovering ominously above the battlefield, unleashed a barrage of energy blasts that rained down on the settlement. One struck dangerously close to the central hall, sending Lena tumbling to the ground. She coughed, shaking off the dust as Ren helped her to her feet. "We can't hold out against that ship for long," Ren shouted over the commotion. Lena glanced toward the cliffs, her mind racing. The destroyer's cannons were too powerful for their defenses to withstand, but its weak spot was clear: the exposed energy core beneath its hull. If they could hit it, they could take the ship down. She activated her comms. "Solace, we need to take out that destroyer. Aim for the core under its hull." The dragon roared in acknowledgement, soaring toward the massive ship. The destroyer's turrets tracked its movement, firing a relentless stream of plasma bolts. Solace twisted and turned in the air, evading the blasts with an agility that defied its size. The settlers watched in awe as the dragon approached the destroyer, its golden flames illuminating the sky. Solace unleashed a fiery breath aimed directly at the ship's energy core. The blast struck true, but the core's shields absorbed the attack, glowing brighter as they strained under the pressure. "It's not enough," Ren yelled. "The shields are holding." Lena's mind raced. She grabbed a plasma grenade from a nearby soldier's belt and turned to Ren. "Get me to the cliffs. I have an idea." With Ren's help, Lena climbed to a vantage point on the cliffs, her heart pounding. As the battle raged below, she activated the plasma grenade, its timer ticking down, and turned to Solace, who hovered nearby. "Solace, take me up there," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "I'll throw this directly at the core." The dragon hesitated, its golden eyes filled with concern. "Dangerous." "I know," Lena replied, "but it's the only way. Trust me." Solace growled softly, then lowered its massive head, allowing Lena to climb onto its back. With a powerful leap, the dragon soared toward the destroyer, weaving through the storm of plasma fire. Lena clung tightly to its scales, the grenade clutched in her hand. As they approached the destroyer, Solace unleashed another fiery breath, temporarily disabling the core's shields. Lena stood, balancing precariously on the dragon's back, and hurled the grenade with all her strength. The device struck the exposed core and detonated in a blinding explosion. The destroyer shuddered, its hull cracking as secondary explosions rippled through its structure. Solace veered away just in time, carrying Lena to safety as the massive ship plummeted toward the ocean. Cheers erupted from the settlement as the destroyer crashed into the waves, its wreckage disappearing beneath the tide. The remaining Imperial forces, demoralized and leaderless, began to retreat. The battle was over. As Solace landed on the cliffs, Lena slid off its back, her legs trembling from exhaustion. She turned to the dragon, a small smile on her face. "We did it, Solace." The dragon lowered its head, nudging her gently. Together the settlers gathered below, their cheers echoing through the cliffs. For the first time, they had stood against the Empire and won. At the center of their victory stood a human medic and a dragon who had once been left for dead, now united as an unstoppable force. The wreckage of the Dreadwing-class destroyer smoldered in the ocean, its once mighty form reduced to jagged remnants scattered along the coastline. The settlers of Morrow's Reach emerged cautiously from their defenses, their faces a mix of relief and disbelief. Against all odds, they had defeated the Empire. Dr. Lena Hartwell stood atop the cliffs, her heart pounding as she surveyed the battlefield. The wounded settlers had begun tending to each other, their spirits buoyed by their unexpected victory. Beside her, Solace, the mighty Xerian dragon, rested, its golden eyes scanning the horizon for any lingering threats. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lena asked, her voice quiet. Solace rumbled, its deep telepathic voice resonating in her mind. "They always return, but we are stronger now." Lena nodded, her thoughts racing. The Empire's defeat here was a significant blow, but it wouldn't be the end. Their pride and power wouldn't allow them to ignore such a loss. We need to prepare for what comes next. As she descended the cliffs to rejoin the settlers, Lena found herself greeted as a hero. Ren Trevors, the elder of Morrow's Reach, approached her with a broad smile. "You've given us hope, Lena. For the first time in years, we feel like we have a chance." Lena smiled faintly but shook her head. "This isn't over, Ren. The Empire won't take this lightly. We've made a statement, but it comes with a cost." Ren placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll face it together. You and that dragon of yours have shown us what's possible." As the settlement celebrated their victory, Lena's mind lingered on the future. She had saved Solace, but in doing so, she had drawn the ire of one of the galaxy's most powerful forces. Still, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, she and Solace had become a beacon of defiance, and they wouldn't let that light dim. The following weeks were a blur of activity. The settlers of Morrow's Reach transformed their once peaceful outpost into a fortress, using the salvaged remains of the destroyer to bolster their defenses. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy, inspiring whispers of rebellion in other Imperial territories. Lena and Solace became inseparable, their bond deepened by their shared experiences. The dragon's wounds had fully healed, and its shimmering scales gleamed brighter than ever. Solace often perched on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, its presence a silent reminder of the power that now protected the settlement. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lena joined Solace on the cliffs. She leaned against the dragon's massive flank, her gaze fixed on the waves below. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" she said, her voice soft. Solace rumbled in agreement. "You gave me life again." Lena smiled, resting a hand on the dragon's side. "And you gave me purpose." As the stars began to fill the sky, a small ship appeared on the horizon. Its sleek design was unfamiliar. Lena's hand instinctively moved to her comms device, ready to sound an alert, but Solace growled softly. "Not enemy." The ship landed on the outskirts of the settlement, and a group of figures disembarked. They were a mix of species, humans, aliens, and other beings, and their expressions were a blend of awe and determination. At their head was a tall woman with silver hair and piercing violet eyes. "You must be Dr. Hartwell," the woman said, her voice steady. "My name is Carvin, and I represent the Free Systems Alliance." Lena tilted her head, intrigued. "Alliance? Never heard of it." Kaur smiled faintly. "That's because we've operated in the shadows, until now. Word of your battle has spread. You've shown the galaxy that the Empire isn't invincible. We want to help." Lena exchanged a glance with Solace, whose golden eyes gleamed with interest. "What kind of help?" "Resources, weapons, allies," Kaur replied. "The Empire has ruled through fear for too long. With your dragon and your leadership, we can spark a rebellion that spreads across the stars." Lena's heart raced. She looked out at the settlement, the cliffs, and the ocean, feeling the weight of the decision before her. This wasn't just about Zuria anymore. It was about the entire galaxy. Turning back to Kaur, she nodded. "We're in. But this isn't about war, it's about freedom." Kaur smiled. "Then let's begin." As the settlers gathered to hear the news, Lena and Solace stood together, their bond unshakable. They had faced the Empire and won, and now they were ready to lead a fight that would echo across the stars. The Zarian dragon, once abandoned and forgotten, had become a symbol of hope. And with Lena by its side, there was no limit to what they could achieve. Together they were unstoppable, a force of nature destined to change the galaxy forever.